Is listening to an audiobook actually considered reading? I ask because that is the current discourse going on social media.
First off, go watch Priya's entire video. You can find it by clicking on this comment. This is a conversation that makes the rounds on social media regularly, and not just on TikTok or on YouTube. This makes the rounds in a number of the book groups that I'm in on Facebook. Right, the argument goes, well, you can't list audiobooks in your list of books that you've read for the year, or listening to an audiobook isn't really reading. You have to consume books with your eyeballs, or it's not legit. You didn't actually read that book. Earlier today, I messaged Priya and was like, can I make a video response to your video? And she was like, yeah, absolutely, go for it. I had already left this comment, creating a false hierarchy that ranks consuming books with your eyes as being superior to consuming books with your ears is entirely based in ableism. And it is precisely because of this that I think it's important to continue to have this conversation. As long as people are saying that reading books with your eyeballs is really reading and listening to books with your ears is not, we need to continue to discuss this issue. And when I saw Priya's video and I initially messaged her, I was coming from the perspective of being the parent of two dyslexic people, the child and the sibling of dyslexic people, and thus understanding the value of consuming books auditorily when you have a learning disability. But I think there's more layers to it than that. I think it's especially appropriate that I'm responding now. I think people who are familiar with my content may know that I have a familial hemiplegic migraine disorder. I was hit with a headache this morning and I've taken my meds, so a lot of the head pain is not there, but all of the other neurological symptoms definitely are. So if I mess up my words, if I have garbled words in my videos today, that's why. But I also have neurological symptoms in my face and down my arm, but also in my eye. It becomes very difficult for me to read when I'm having a migraine. I can't track words on the page very well, and sometimes this eye actually rotates inward. I kind of lose the ability to control the muscles in my eye. And while the abortive medication that I take, Ubrelvy, is really good at interrupting the head pain and somewhat of the aura, it doesn't cover the other neurological symptoms. So when I sat down to make this video, I was like, oh, I can barely read my comment. And I was like, of course, there are so many other reasons besides dyslexia or other specific reading disabilities that people might need to use audiobooks, and that doesn't make them less than. This desire to have a hierarchy where we put consuming books with our eyeballs as somehow above consuming books with our ears is really, really weird to me. When you were a little kid and you didn't yet know how to read and your mom would read to you, before I learned how to read, my mom read to me basically everything of Tolkien. Pretty sure that's a valid way to consume literature. I'm pretty sure that for people who are blind, using their hands to consume a book through Braille, pretty sure that's legitimately reading. Why is it that we have made this weird distinction, or people are desperate to try and create this weird distinction that reading books with your eyes is different than reading them with your ears? And that's why I consciously use the term reading when I talk about audiobooks. I understand that creating hierarchies in general comes from a position of fragility, but I really don't get this one, other than it has to be rooted in ableism. Also a thing that's about fragility for the able-bodied, right? Again, as the parent of dyslexic children, like, they have been able to read so many books, listen to so many podcasts, consume so much literature, fiction and nonfiction, through audiobooks. And it's not just them. It's not just me when I'm having a migraine. I was also thinking about how there's this layer of sexism to it. I'm specifically talking about moms here, and especially homemakers. Those are my peeps. That's my in-group, right? So for us, we do a lot of work that is just straight up drudgery, is not intellectually stimulating at all, but requires the focus of our eyes. Dishes, laundry, cooking, even other things like, breastfeeding a child, or putting your kid down for a nap, or doing yard work. For me, like, that's not strictly, mothering stuff, but doing garden work, mucking out the chicken coop. So much work for moms, for homemakers, is drudgery. A lot of that work is just really insufficient to keep us intellectually stimulated, but we do not have time in our days to sit down and dedicate hours to looking at a book and reading, especially when our kids are little and very, very busy, right? And so for me, and so I hear this from like so many other moms, that audiobooks are a lifeline. It is a way that we can still have access to literature even when the requirements of our life make it impossible for us to sit down and read. And likewise, they aid us in being able to better get through the parts of our day that are just an absolute drudgery. It definitely is that kind of spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. I can get through a stack of dishes. I can muck out the chicken coop. I can spread a whole wheelbarrow full of mulch if I've got an audiobook going. I also think about those times when my kids were little and would need me to like help soothe them to sleep or get them to sleep. It would just seem to go on forever. You try and pull your arm out and then they're awake again. And how many times I was listening to audiobooks. I'm so old that those were books on CD from the library. But there were lots of long nights where I was awake dealing with a fussy toddler and I was listening to an audiobook to help me get through it. So creating this bizarre artificial hierarchy where you say that the ways that so many women, mothers consume books is less than the ways that people with disabilities consume books that's different than how you consume books is somehow less than. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing, y'all? Like, why is it, if you're somebody who is tempted to say that I'm reading a book with my eyeballs and therefore I'm really reading a book, and if you are reading it through an audiobook or somebody is reading it to you, you're not really reading it. What do you think you're doing? Please explain to me the justification for your position, because I cannot understand it. I also think there's low-key a little bit of colonialism in there as well, prioritizing the written word versus cultures that prioritize storytelling as a way to convey stories to other people, as a way to have cultural connection, as a way to educate people. Making one seem superior to the other, it mystifies me. Please help me understand what you're thinking. And likewise, I would just ask you to sit for a little bit with your own position and unpack it. Why is it that you feel the need to claim that the way you consume books is superior to the ways that disabled people might consume books? Why is it that you feel the need to denigrate other people's method of enjoying literature? Is it good? Is it necessary? What is it that you're doing there?